Okay, hopefully everyone can see my slides and not all my notes and scribbles. So yeah, thank you to Claire and Cheyenne and Kim for inviting me along this afternoon to talk about career opportunities and working in SMEs and small chemistry teams. My name is Laura. I am one of the career and professional development advisors here at the Royal Society of Chemistry. I've been here for nearly 18 years, a background in HR and recruitment, and working about 14 years in this role as in the careers team, which is really around providing support to people at all career stages and whatever they want to explore. And I work very closely with the accreditation team as well. So what I'm going to cover in the half an hour that I've got, and as Sam said, please do type in questions, because it will be great to sort of field your questions as well at the end. So I'm going to talk about just kind of a little bit of an understanding of how we identify and create career opportunities, and perhaps I don't want to focus too much on the challenges that might come from perhaps working in a smaller company. Actually, I really want the focus to be on the positives and the benefits of that, and Sam has already touched on some of those. And really what I want to focus on is how do you sort of take those positives and sort of channel them into thinking about your career, the opportunities that can come from that, and alongside that really thinking about how the CChem process can really support that. So not only in terms of gaining CChem in itself, gaining that recognition of who you are, what you have to offer, but also using it as a tool to enable you to grow and sort of show your impact beyond CChem. And so a large part of my talk will also talk about this concept of self-reflective practice that actually forms a really strong part of the CChem process, but it's important to really think about how you utilize it as a tool beyond that. So as Sam's already touched on, as I'm sure many of you will already know, some of you will be facing this, smaller companies can offer unique challenges, but I firmly believe that actually many of those can be viewed as positives. But some of those challenges could be things like limited resources, often having to sort of potentially juggle sort of multiple hats, possibly less job security, potentially limited progression opportunities, perhaps potentially lack of a more sort of formal processes and structure, which may add to sort of pressure. But some people, of course, like that and thrive on that. I think it's important to recognise sometimes when you're working perhaps in that smaller organisation, there is a sort of a greater impact on your individual performance, and that can definitely be viewed perhaps as a challenge, but also as a positive. And often the one that comes up is around that sort of less, possibly less sort of training and development. But of course that is not always the case. And actually that's why sort of engaging in a process like CChem can really sort of support that. So as I said, I really wanted to sort of focus on thinking about what are the positives, what are the benefits of working in a smaller company that really help you sort of hone in on the sort of the skills, particularly the sort of transferable skills that employers are interested in. And many of those skills, those opportunities align with the skills that you're talking about in order to achieve CChem. So you can see on my slides I've sort of highlighted some of those, and I'm going to sort of touch on some of those in a bit more detail. And I think actually some of these skills really hone in on ways that being part of a smaller organisation can really help you as an individual sort of grow professionally. So we touched earlier on this concept of diverse responsibilities and wearing potentially sort of multiple hats, and that's quite common in a small company. Employees can potentially take on multiple roles, or certainly be exposed to different aspects of the business that they might not be so exposed to in a larger organisation, but this potentially has that opportunity to allow you to develop, you know, a broader skill set. So for example, you might handle marketing, customer services, sales, etc., and that gives you a more comprehensive understanding of different business functions. I do apologise, I've got a fighter jet currently flying past. I'm just going to shut my window. The challenges of living near an American airbase. And this can be a really good way of developing your problem solving skills. So it might be, like we said before, you know, a smaller size team can often mean fewer resources, which can often encourage perhaps more creative problem solving skills and innovation. And potentially you may frequently face challenges that require you to think outside the box and potentially come up with more effective solutions. Sam again touched on that sort of autonomy and responsibilities, you know, again, that much more sort of ownership potentially of projects. So you may be much more likely to be involved in seeing a project through from start to finish, or certainly being involved in that process. And that experience can absolutely help you develop project management skills, time management skills, and leadership skills alongside this aspect of decision making. You know, it's likely that again, in a smaller company, there will be less kind of formal layers of sort of management, and so you're much more likely to be potentially involved in those opportunities to make decisions and influence the company's direction. And again, this helps you kind of build your confidence, strategic thinking, and as we've said there, that sort of decision making skills. And that ties in, I think, nicely with this next point around that sort of direct access to leadership. You know, you're potentially going to be more likely working closely with founders or senior management, and that again gives you that sort of direct access potentially to mentorship, to guidance, and feedback, and that will also support your development, which can be really sort of beneficial in terms of accelerating your learning, and again, those sort of leadership and sort of business strategy skills. I've talked about soft skills here. I always put them in brackets because I think soft skills, using the term soft skills, kind of takes away from the importance of them. I prefer to refer to them as core skills. They fundamentally are skills that all employers are interested in. They form the real basis of transferable skills, but you will absolutely be building on those skills. You know, in smaller teams, effective communication is going to be really essential for communication, and there's often a need to communicate across different levels and departments. You're absolutely going to need to be able to be adaptable and flexible. You'll often need to adapt quickly. Situations change, and again, that's going to help you potentially develop sort of resilience and alongside that flexibility as well. And relationship building is going to be really important, particularly in that smaller organisation where you're going to have that close-knit environment, which really encourages those sort of strong interpersonal relationships and networking, you know, both within the company and obviously with external stakeholders, so clients and suppliers as well. You're also potentially going to have that exposure to much more breadth around sort of technology and tools and software. Small companies often adopt a range of tools and technologies to sort of streamline their operations and give their employees that chance to become proficient. And digital skills are really at the forefront. SMEs are obviously kind of experimenting with tools and that ability to show your understanding, your ability to assimilate sort of knowledge around digital skills is a really sort of crucial transferable skill that we know employers are looking for going forward as well. Last couple of bullet points here. So I've got one around innovation. So much more opportunity potentially in that smaller environment to have that creative freedom, much less likely to have perhaps bureaucracy and being more open to new ideas, which, as we know, gives you that sort of creative freedom to innovate. And as I said before, that ability to really demonstrate the impact that you have, the impactful contributions that you make directly to the company's growth and success is going to be really crucial as well. And there is that potential with that working in that environment that, you know, whilst there might not be that more sort of formal structure, smaller organizations often have that much more fluid structure, which can have that potential to lead to faster promotions and career advancements for those who demonstrate initiative and add value to a company. So, you know, working in a small company or an SME can actually be a really rich environment for developing a wide range of both hard, core, soft skills, whatever you want to call them. And actually that experience can also prepare you for a variety of roles, enhance your adaptability, and provides you with a much more holistic understanding of business operations, which can be valuable not only in your current role, but also future career moves. And as I say there, many of these skills, many of those opportunities that I talk about really align with those skills that are required to achieve CChem. And I think when undertaking CChem, it's really important, and hopefully this has come through with what I was saying earlier, it's really important to recognise the value of the process itself. The process itself is just, for me as a careers professional, just as valuable as being awarded CChem itself, because it will equip you with lots of valuable skills that will help you as you continue to progress your career. And as I've said already, working within a smaller company allows you to potentially kind of strengthen those skills. And I think what it really also does is equip you with the skill of regularly reflecting on your strengths and development areas. And actually what this will help you start to recognise is what you want your career to look like not only in the immediate future, but also maybe sort of thinking about your sort of longer term aims and goals. And we know that when we get feedback from CChem awardees that they found the process itself very useful. Rarely, actually, if we're not doing a process like CChem or just more generally, do we make the time to review our current skills and identify opportunities? So I would absolutely encourage you, even once you've completed CChem, take away that ability, that opportunity to kind of reflect and take time out to you know, even if it's sort of once a year, once every 6 months, that ability to just kind of review and think about what it is that you want to achieve can be really beneficial. And I've talked a lot about those sort of technical, not the technical skills, the transferable skills, and the you know, how kind of CChem really can draw those things out. So it's kind of beyond that sort of technical knowledge. And I know I've spoken to people in consultations, and I know it's a common theme of people thinking, well, I can't work towards CChem because actually I don't work in a lab anymore. And it's kind of moving beyond that and recognizing the real breadth of skills across those CChem attributes. So you can see I've sort of highlighted within each of those sections what those skills might be, and I'm not going to go through them in detail. You can see them here, but it's about really recognizing that these are actually those core skills. These are those transferable skills that employers look for. So going through the CChem process and recognizing, actually, I've got a breadth of these skills, I've got a breadth of these transferable skills, is actually often quite enlightening to people. It's not just about that sort of technical knowledge of chemistry that is the focus. And it's about recognizing, okay, where might I have gaps? Where might I be able to create opportunities to enable me to develop these skills and experiences? And create, I think here is the optimum word, because actually recognize maybe where you're in a role in a smaller company, you might have opportunity to enable you to build and evidence these skills. So something to reflect on there. And I've talked a lot about self-reflection and building this habit of self-reflective practice, which you will absolutely be doing as part of CChem, but it is something that I would encourage beyond that. Self-reflection actually is an incredibly underrated activity because it's difficult to make time for, and often we're not quite sure how to do it. We can feel quite uncomfortable because we aren't used to sort of talking or thinking about ourselves, and particularly in terms of our successes as much as our failures. And it is really important and has lots of benefits, as I keep saying, for your longer term career success, as well as achieving CChem. And you can reflect and record in a way that works best for you, but fundamentally it's about ensuring you get to know yourself better. It enables you to take stock of why you do what you do, how you do it, why you don't enjoy certain tasks or aspects of your role, and what skills you're looking to sort of develop or strengthen. And fundamentally it's about increasing your own self-awareness. And actually that in itself is a skill that employers value, and can be really vital in helping you identify and define your own unique career success, because success and what that looks like isn't going to be the same for everyone, and for each individual it is going to change. So really it's about discovering what drives you so you can understand and shape your own sort of professional niche and get what you want out of your career. So you could do this through a skills gap analysis, identifying your goals. Are there any areas you want to develop? And again, CChem, the process of CChem will support you with this. Discuss those gaps with your CChem mentor and your line manager, and where you are in those smaller companies, identify who are those people that might be able to support that, and identify any barriers to that development. and then think about how you're going to meet those gaps and overcome those barriers. Maybe you don't have any gaps. So again, use your mentor to understand more about yourself, what goes well, why, those sort of motivations and the learnings, and how you would do things differently. Those things are all really, really valuable. And as I said, that vital part of this self-reflection is getting that support through your CChem member. They are absolutely there to help you succeed and also help you explore your goals. So kind of think about how you're utilizing that time with them as well. And that sort of time and space and permission to reflect for me is really, really crucial. And I would add in, beyond CChem, the RSC has mentoring programs that you can access to kind of build that support going forward as well. And I've talked a lot, and I'm conscious of time, and I don't want to sort of encroach on Marina's time. And I've talked a lot around this sort of benefits of undertaking this reflective practice, and I'm not going to go through each of those bullet points. You can sort of clearly see those, but again, it's for me, it's about reiterating that CChem gives you that structure of that you can apply to this sort of self-reflective practice, the sort of CPD and career development kind of journey, if you like, that kind of takes you on, and building on that. So actually, it's not, whilst it's fantastic to get your CChem and sort of get that recognition, take some time to build on that. What skills have you honed through going through that process that are going to support you beyond that? These skills of self-reflective practice will absolutely stand you in good stead. I'm just going to quickly pass over to Shreya now to just kind of touch on just to give that sort of general reminder and an overview of each of those attributes. So I'll just pass to you for a couple of minutes, Shreya, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. So as you see here, we have essentially our 5 attribute groups that I'm sure you're all aware of, having been on the CChem journey yourself. And so what we like to see is how your professionalism within the chemical sciences can be demonstrated within this award. So attribute group A is focused on how you apply your chemical knowledge and how you demonstrate and develop it. So we're looking at how you apply it to inform your decisions and create impact, how you continue to develop this knowledge and use it to support the work that you conduct, and then using your chemical knowledge to be able to solve problems, draw conclusions through interpreting data and using evidence-based judgment and critical thinking to develop courses of action. With the second group, attribute group B, we're looking at the professionalism side. And it's important to note that outside of group A, we're only interested then in your professional skills as opposed to your chemical and technical knowledge. But going back to attribute group B, so looking at professionalism, we're looking at how you perform your role with autonomy, accountability, and integrity, how you're able to work as part of a team to make an impactful contribution, but also how you work individually in order to plan, organize, manage resources to meet the organizational requirements for your firm. And then how do you contribute to continuous improvement by evaluating the work that you do and displaying the adaptability that's necessary within the workplace. Attribute group C, we're looking at the communication and influencing skills. Now, a lot of you will often have some of this, as part and parcel of your daily work, but we're looking at how you effectively convey information using both the verbal and written forms, considering and responding to alternative views within your team or within your wider organization, and note the influence that this has on your actions, and then exerting influence in your role, either directly or through the networks that you may have. And ultimately, this is how essentially you can communicate between others within the workplace. Attribute group D is looking at the professional responsibilities. So how you are able to adhere to the company's core values and codes of conduct. We're also looking at how you best adhere to the RSC code of conduct as well. and also how you're contributing to a sustainable future on top of that. And then finally, attribute group E is supporting the wider profession. So how are you becoming an active member of the scientific community, either through your work or outside of work, whether it's through initiatives such as attending conferences or promoting the work that you do at school events, that kind of thing. But yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Ray. So just on my last few slides, I've just got some examples of things that you can be doing to support reflective practice, perhaps beyond that structure of CChem, but some of these activities will absolutely support you with that. And I think it's, you know, it's about finding a way that works for you. So there's no right or wrong way about thinking about reflective practice or recording your reflective practice. Find a way that works for you. So it could be a separate notebook or a diary, it could be an electronic journal, it could be post-it notes, it could be a CPD tracking tool, and I'll touch a little bit on the RSC's tool in a moment. Could be video, could be audio, journals, drawing, you know, whatever it might be. But really it's about this ability to take time to reflect. So whether that is thinking about your problem solving skills and reflecting on that, what could have gone differently, whether it's just tracking your progress against goals and kind of reviewing your learning. And actually also it is very much about developing this self-awareness, this sort of much more sort of emotional intelligence, and potentially helping you sort of manage stress if that's applicable. Go slowly, be honest. It doesn't have to be war and peace. It doesn't have to be something that you do every day. A few regular notes can really support it. And don't amend or censor what you write. You know, nobody needs to see it apart from you. But it's about building this sort of habit. So whether it's early morning, whether it's the end of the week, whether it's at lunchtime, but sort of stick with it, and over time you will sort of build this habit of self-reflection. And it is very much about the positives and the negatives. So you're going to learn as much from the failures as successes, and do reflect on the successes. I think again it's human nature that we tend to focus on where things have gone wrong, but do focus on where things have gone well, and why. What were you doing? What skills were you utilizing? Think about some questions again to sort of support that self-reflection. So take a specific situation in your day or in your work. You know, what would you do differently? Ask yourself, you know, what does a good day look like to you? What goals am I working towards? Lots of questions that can really support that. And again, kind of speak to your mentor, speak to colleagues, get that sort of feedback as well of kind of what you think, because they are likely to be able to sort of shed light on that from their own perspective as well. And there is lots of support through the RSC, obviously through the CChem process itself. You've got that sort of nice structure. You've got that sort of in-depth outline of the skills that you're working towards. But more broadly, we offer our members an online careers toolkit, which has got lots of assessments and resources to support your sort of learning, and you can access that through the RSC's member area. And that might support you in your CChem sort of reflection and work, and it will also support you more broadly in terms of your sort of career planning as well. We do also have our Pathfinder tool, which is a personalized professional development tool, again exclusive to RSC members, so you'll be able to access that and register for that through our members area. And what's great about the tool is that it's a great place to kind of consider, record and reflect where you're at. So you can absolutely think about using that beyond CChem as a tool. Once you register, you can go through questionnaire, and it will recommend specific activities that you can undertake. You can record your own activities, place to record your goals, and like I say, just a great place to potentially just record some of your reflections as well. So again, I'd sort of encourage you to take a look at that. Take a look at it now. It absolutely will support some of the work that you're doing within your CChem. Like I say, it makes suggestions around activities that you can be doing as well. And other things that can support that self-reflection. So as I've already said, speak to colleagues, collaborators, team members, line managers, supervisors. Ask them, you know, what problems do they bring to you, and know that you could help them with. What do they think are your strengths? What's key to this is really that concept of knowing yourself and understanding yourself, and I think CChem really adds to that concept. Utilize your mentor. I've talked about that a lot. Utilize us as well. Obviously you get a lot of support within the accreditation team, but also the careers team is also here to help you think about your career and support that. You can email the careers team at any time with any questions, or you can book appointments via our events page as well. But like I say, the key is really this concept of knowing yourself, learning about yourself, and reflecting on what you've learned about yourself, which enables you to kind of define your sort of niche and career success. So yeah, that's it from me. I've gone 1 minute over time, so that's not too bad, and I will look forward to some questions after Rowena has presented. So I'll just stop sharing and pass over to Rowena.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to get mine up. Okay, fantastic. Hopefully you can all see that. Okay, so yeah, I'm actually quite impressed how well everybody's run to time. I've never been in something where everyone is quite so exactly close to the time. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm going to talk about gaining my chartered chemist status and the journey that I went on to do that. And hopefully this will be useful to the people who are attending here, and will maybe bring up more questions for you to ask, which will bring out even more useful things. So to start with, let's take you back in time. I'm going to go on a bit of a journey back to March 2020, when I made the decision to consider my CChem, or to make plans to undertake my CChem. And this is a very important time for me. I think it's a very important time for a lot of people, and you might be able to guess some of what's coming. Across 4 weeks between February and March 2020, 3 key things happened to me. The first one was that I was made redundant. So I was at the time working part-time freelance and part-time for a small company, a small charity called Science Oxford, which has about 25 employees, and they made 7 or 8 people redundant. So it was a substantial number of people in the organization, and I was one of them. In fact, my entire team of 1.6 people was made redundant. I was the 0.6 person. And also COVID happened, which I'm sure you'll all be aware of. So what that resulted in was the fact that not only were we all made redundant, but we were all made redundant, and then we left early, or earlier than the redundancy should have kicked in, which should have been towards the end of March, so about a week to 2 weeks early. But of course, I had actually left even earlier than that, because in February 2020, I had a baby. And this is very important, because initially, obviously brought up questions about the redundancy as well, but initially I had plans about what I was going to do and how I was going to use that time that I was going to be off. But then, because of the redundancy and because of COVID, everything changed. So I asked myself, is this a crisis, Or is it a training and development opportunity? And I made my mind up that I was going to go and find something useful to do in that time, which would advance my career, because of the fact that I wasn't going to be doing as much work. I wasn't able to find work and be paid. I was going to use that to develop myself in order to be able to, in future, do more in my career. So I'm a science communicator, and one of the first questions that I asked myself is the CChem for people like me? What I'd heard of it as is a bit more of an either academic or industrial badge, which was perhaps like a career stage tick box for some of those fields. But I actually came across a bit more information about it because of my involvement in the RSC. And one of my roles was as the bulletin editor for the environmental chemistry group. So the environmental chemistry group is an interest group, and twice a year we produce a bulletin called the ECG bulletin in January and July. And in producing that, I was putting a little advert for the CChem in that, and of course had to write a bit about what it was to make sure that the information was thorough, correct, interesting for people to read, and looked it up and ended up reading a bit more about it. And it was through this that I discovered that the key qualifications would be having RSC membership, master's level qualifications in the chemical science or equivalent experience, and evidence of meeting the CChem's attributes, as well as CPD, commitment CPD. And I thought, well, those things all seem pretty straightforward, pretty easy for me to obtain, and they don't actually require me to be working in a particular field. My key motivation was that it is now 9 years since I'd completed my Master of Chemistry, or 6 years since my PhD. And the redundancy signaled to me that it was time to maybe consider the next career phase, what I wanted to do next. Did I want to go full-time freelance? Did I want to move into a slightly different field? How did I want to take my career? And the leave provided me the time to work on it. Obviously, a very important aspect, but also the time to do self-reflection, as we've just been talking about, without saying, oh no, I better go and do this because this other bit of work will make me money, whereas doing self-reflection might one day pay dividends, but I'll never know. It was much easier for me to say, no, this is really important and I've got the time, I will use it now. I also asked myself, why do I want to achieve the CChem, and what would actually that be? So as a freelancer, that could be that it would benefit me in obtaining work, but the main thing that attracted me to it was the self-reflective aspect. It was the fact that by thinking through what I wanted, I was able to make sure that I took my career in the direction that I would find most enjoyable, most fun, and best suited to the life that I was obviously now on a slightly different journey through. So I really wanted to be effective in my career choices, and I thought that this would actually help me with that, as well as coming out with something at the end to show what I'd done. And I also now want to just point out that when I was asking these questions, the things that I did to make those decisions is I talked to Katie Springham, and I went on a Zoom meeting with her. And I also want to mention Nellie Harvey, who was also incredibly helpful to me. And between these two people, they were able to clarify the questions that I had about whether I was the kind of person who could do this, primarily by giving me these two bits of really useful information, which was first that there is something which they call a teacher track. And by teacher track, we mean that chemistry teachers seeking the CChem, being quite a big group, commonly approached it in a similar way. And by approaching it in a similar way to them as a science communicator, essentially an educational provider in a non-school setting, I would be able to have a template of what others had done before me. And that was very helpful to know that it was very set up for them, and not just for industry and academia, but also that there would be people like me doing the same thing. And also the fact that several RSC staff also had CChem status. So they were again showing me that there's another field that's a bit different, where it's not unusual for people to have gone through this process. So those were both really reassuring and helpful bits of information. And I think between those bits of information, that was what gave me the oomph to go for the CChem. Now, there were, of course, some challenges. Primarily, I'm not aware of anyone with CChem chartership in my field, which is something that I said in one of the email exchanges I had at the beginning. One of the things that's required is to have the CChem, somebody with a CChem chartership sign you off, and that's usually the mentor. But if I wanted somebody who was a chemist in my field who could act as a good mentor, then that wasn't going to be able to be somebody with CChem chartership. However, I was able to find that other people in the interest group to which I belonged did have that status, and as I worked closely with them for a number of years, as the little infographic at the side shows, I started being involved in the RSC interest group in 2014. I'm still involved in it now. There were people there who would be willing to support me with that small aspect, and that led me on the challenge of choosing a mentor in my field. So I've just been made redundant. I'm no longer working with other people in my field. I am only freelancer. I'm part-time freelance, and I'm on maternity leave from that. So this was part of what made me take the decision to do a fast track application. Because if I did the fast track, I could use more of the previous couple of years of work that I had done when I was working at Science Oxford as evidence. And that had the benefit of not just highlighting the lone working that I had done, but also allowing me to showcase the team working that I had done in my 1.6 team, but also because of it being such a small organization with the other 20-something people who work there, doing cross-team work and so on, and the kind of things that Laura mentioned could be benefits from small organizations. And then that led me on to asking Bridget Holligan, who was the Director of Education and Engagement at Science Oxford, to be my mentor. And she was a fantastic mentor, not only because she was like very enthusiastic about doing so and really wanted to help me, but also because even though she had spent her whole career as an employee and essentially was my 2-level up line manager at Science Oxford, but also because she had done some independent projects, including launching Thinking, Doing, Talking Science, which is an education project with somebody else outside Science Oxford. And these creative projects that she had, which were essentially her brainchild and had been very successful, allowed her to think about various different aspects of my career in an incredibly helpful way. And she was just a very good role model, and to have her involved was, I guess, very flattering and very supportive. The fast track aspect put a lot of pressure on me to get things done in a certain amount of time, but I think that in many ways it was better to say, look, I know I have done enough. If I can gather that evidence rather than go more slowly, but find that things that I've done towards this are now expiring from the window, I feel that that was much more encouraging. It spurred me through it, and it got me through all that paperwork. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people would find 14 written statements to the attributes. This was the old style application you can see in the background, which was the one that I completed back in 2021 when I did acquire the CChem. It's a lot, but I actually really enjoyed working this hard and writing this much. And in fact, I found it very hard to whittle down everything I was saying to the very key things, the most important things. I was worried that if I cut something out, that maybe I wouldn't be able to be signed off for the CChem after all that work, and I'd have to start again, at which point certain things would have expired and I would have to complete more activities. So perhaps I did overdo the work a little bit, and the cutting it down was the key thing. But I guess that was another challenge of the application. one of the benefits that I had was that I had the diverse set of involvements from my volunteering with the Royal Society of Chemistry, my freelance work, and small organisation work, and I could include all of those. And just to finish, I wanted to say that going forward, the reflection that I've done from this has inspired me to think about diversifying further. So instead of just being freelance, I have moved to do some other educational work. So I'm still part-time freelance, but I'm now part-time employed in a different field. It has encouraged me to join the members community board in the Royal Society of Chemistry. So instead of just being within the interest group, I've got other roles. I have become a school governor, and I have recently applied for and been given a Royal Society of Chemistry outreach grant, so I can do some of the freelance work that I love doing with the kind of people in community groups who might not otherwise be able to afford to have these kind of educational enrichments. And that means that I'm able to take the stuff that I really want to do, which is to widen access to chemistry, further forward. So I feel that this has been very inspirational in thinking about how to widen, diversify, and spread my career path going forward to achieve the things that I really want. And thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Rowena and Laura, actually, for all of that. I think, you know, I've put some thoughts, if you like, into into the Q&A bit. I think certainly for me, there's a lot of thoughts that I have around why people don't actually look at their own career development enough. You know, we kind of look at where our path is and where we want to go, and then we're looking at that and saying, my next role will be this, rather than necessarily looking at ourselves and going, where do I want to be going forwards? And I kind of liken this to the fact that, you know, I work in small businesses, so I'm constantly dealing with investors, and they are looking at what I'm doing in terms of a gap analysis and what does the company need in order for me to invest into this company and take it forwards. But we don't do that ourselves. We don't look at our own gaps, if you like, and try and plug them in order to then move our career forwards. And I think Laura did a wonderful job outlining how important that can be, and how actually when we start to build all of the qualities around this, that we're filling those gaps. We're placing ourselves in a better position to move ourselves forwards. And I think it's never a straight path. I think, you know, Rowena's been excellent at showing the fact that actually, you know, your career path is never straightforward. Things always come around and knock you off balance or put you on a different pathway. I had something similar with a health problem, where I had part of my intestine removed and had to work part-time for a while. And I got to say, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely. And I think for me, it was a different way of looking at what I wanted from my career and my path. And it was kind of forced upon me, because I don't think I would have actually taken that time to do it unless I was forced to. So we do have a question, and I will start with that, and I encourage everyone to, you know, to get involved. Otherwise it just makes my life harder. So post your questions, and we'll go through some of them. And Lauren's asked, she works in a engineering consultancy firm, and she applies her chemistry knowledge to a range of different projects, and engineering firms often are very project based. But she worries that her practical lab, the lack of practical lab work, will hold her CChem application back. Laura, would you want to address that one?
I can, or Shreya do chip in, but I think my understanding is it's the kind of, it's not all about the sort of practical as such. It's the knowledge rather than the physical things that she's doing. And it's sort of evidencing that. And I guess it's the demonstrating the impact your chemistry knowledge has, which is the important thing, rather than the specific thing that you're doing. Yeah, I don't know if you want to sort of add to that, Shreyan or Kim.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that I've spoken with Lauren in one of the consultations. So I'm just trying to wrap my brain as to what I suggested last time. But the thing is, like I briefly outlined during Laura's presentation section, the only real chemistry that we are interested in is for those A attributes. And in reality, even that is only just a demonstration. We're not actually interested in your technical knowledge being at the absolute forefront of every single attribute. It's simply how you're applying it. We don't actually need to know the chemistry that you're doing, for example. So if for working in an engineering consultancy, you'll have to do certain aspects which are just simply professionalism based. So what was it, about 80% roughly is just professionalism. So that's just your day-to-day role, which has nothing to do with the chemistry. And then the first 3 attributes are the only bits where we need to see it. And there are loads of opportunities that I'm sure you're already involved in where your chemistry knowledge is already being applied within your role. And showing that continuous development can be simply through the attendance of any kind of seminars or conferences or any kind of workshops where you're developing your already pre-existing knowledge base. And we often find that people who are working even outside of labs are still doing enough with their chemistry to be able to apply themselves on these attributes. Is there anything you can think of, Kim, just to add to that?
So the only thing I would add would be to reassure Lauren by saying that we've got people like patent attorneys who don't do any practical work at all, who are CChem, teachers are CChem, RSC staff are CChem. We don't have any labs here, and people still manage to get CChem while they're here. It's all about how you're applying your knowledge of chemistry. You do say that you apply your chemistry knowledge to a broad range of projects. So A1 is all about that, basically. How do you apply that chemistry knowledge?
And I suppose, I mean, Rowena, you're coming at this from a very different angle as well, and you found it very useful.
So I do practical things, but they're not really advanced chemistry. It's more, let's do a workshop with kids with some kind of hands-on activity, and a lot of the time that's not even wet chemistry. It might just be crafting, essentially. And I didn't feel that was something that was a challenge for me in the application. Having said that, I was told that the aspect people think is most challenging is the communication section. But as a science communicator, it was just so easy. There was nothing in that I had to even think about. That was the one section I just knew wouldn't be a difficulty for me. So I think that everybody finds that certain sections are a bit harder to achieve or a bit harder to show. Obviously, from my perspective as doing a lot of freelance work and working in a small company, anything involving a team was harder. So I had to face a different set of challenges than I'm sure Lauren would have to achieve those. Some of them might be more difficult to show, and then others will be really easy. And I think everyone was just different in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, the applications is designed to show a range of skills, if you like, with chemistry at its core. And Lauren, I've worked with a number of engineering consultancy firms, TTP, ITL, Cambridge Consultants, they have a very interesting structure in terms of the way that they operate. And often you find, well, in my experience, engineers try and solve problems by building new and fancy things around how to solve a problem. In my case, it was trying to remove DNA from a sample and then get it into a microfluidic PCR. The issue was that engineers put more and more tubing and more space between it, which essentially just made it even harder, and there was even less DNA around that, because the engineering solution was not the right one, and actually it was coating and putting new coatings on the plastics that were there that actually solved the problem. So you had to teach them how to do it. You had to explain to them why it was so important. because they're not biologists, they're not chemists, and they come at solving a problem from a very different angle. So I think, chemists can be just as bad. We like to do things our way, and often we don't consider engineering solutions for things like that as well. So I think certainly there's a lot to go there. But I think coming back to the communication side, I often think that this is something that is so important and so critical to how you progress your career and how you demonstrate what you're good at. And we've spoken a little bit about it, but I think Rowena finds this easier to do, let's say, in terms of being good at communicating our skills. But I find this actually, sorry, Rowena, I'm just giggling at your son there. But I think often it's something that if you can't demonstrate your communication skills, then it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do if you can't explain it to someone else. And I've done over 1,000 interviews in my career, luckily not on the other side of the table, I suppose. But sometimes I find it very frustrating that I'm almost teasing information out of people. And I'm asking a very simple question. Can you tell me about yourself? No one knows you better than you, and yet people struggle to actually then demonstrate what they're good at or recognize what they've achieved and why they've done that. And it's a very easy thing to do. It's a very easy thing to practice in order to then say, this is what I'm good at. And it's not just interview situations. It's learning how you need to contribute in to all of the different things that you're doing, whether that's, team-based exercises, whether it's, presenting, because often communications, the first thing that people jump to is, I went to this conference, I was on stage, I presented this, or, I presented my poster on that work and everything else. But if you boil it down to how do I get my point across, it's your day-to-day communication, it's your written communication, and it's the way in which you interact with other people that's incredibly important. And I think that professionalism, that ability to drag your communication skills up is what we're trying to demonstrate within all of the CChem attributes. And I think if you can demonstrate these things, you're really then pushing yourself towards that CChem qualification, if you like, because that's a simple demonstration. And having interviewed people recently, I won't mention their name, but they now work for me. One of the easiest things for me to recognize as an employer was, you've done your CChem, so explain to me how you got that. And it was really easy for them to then say, in this aspect, I was able to demonstrate this, in this aspect. And it was really a tool just for getting information out of someone. But if I ask them, tell me about yourself, it's not structured enough as a question for them to then take that forwards. I don't know if anyone else has any comments that they want to make on how you can use your CChem application.
Yeah, I was just going to add that it often, obviously Kim and Shreyan and Claire and I all work for the same organisation, and we want people to get their CChem, and we want them to get that recognition for the work that they do and the level that they're working at. But from when I'm having those conversations with people from a much more sort of career focused perspective, yeah, absolutely, kind of reiterating what you're saying, it is such a good tool, not only from that sort of reflective perspective